Hello, and welcome to the LawCast, brought to you by the Law Factory, who provide a tailored and comprehensive legal account service for solicitors and their firms. The LawCast is where we discuss legal news, changes within the legal profession, and provide tips, tricks, and recommendations to help you run your firm.
Hello and welcome to the LawCast. This is LawCast episode 5, and joining me today, I'm really happy. I've got an old friend of mine, Dave Duncan, who I worked with for many years, and he's from GN Law. And we're here today to talk about legal aid and legal aid practices and all that kind of thing, because we want to sort of raise the profile of those legal aid firms that work very hard. So this is Dave. Dave, perhaps you could sort of give us, our viewers and listeners, a bit of detail about sort of who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah. First of all, when you said old friend, did you mean I'm old or an old friend? Yeah.
Both. Let's say both. Let's say both.
Both. Oh, okay. Both. Right. I'll take that. That's probably right. Yeah. So, yeah, my name's David, but only my mother calls me that when I'm in trouble. So, Dave Duncan. I've worked with Alex from the beginning of my career back in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s.
It's like 99, 2000. I started, I think, in 2000. So, yeah, it's around then.
Yeah. So it's like you said, old friends. And currently I'm head of finance at a firm in North London called GN Law, or Guile Nicholas. And I'm happy to be here and have a little natter with Alex, really, and talk about, whatever we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's good to have you, Dave. And we worked at Law Factory together for a long time. It's really nice. It's really nice to have you on, have a bit of a catch up and a bit of a natter. So it's really, really great. So there's a few things I want to talk about today. A couple of news things that I think are quite important that have kind of cropped up, and it's always nice to get sort of a fellow legal cashier's view on these kind of things, and hopefully we won't get too nerdy about it, but at least but I think it's quite good to highlight. And one of the first things that I wanted to highlight was client account interest. Now we all know that interest rates have soared over the last few months to tackle inflation, and whether you agree with that or disagree with that, it's a fact. Some people are benefiting from it massively, let's be fair, and a lot of people aren't. But it's also going to affect law firms. So and the reason it's going to affect law firms is, it should be fairly obvious, but a lot of law firms hold a lot of client money in their bank account. When you're dealing with, for example, conveyancing large probate matters, long-term matters where we're having to hold significant sums of client money, we have to account to our clients for a fair amount of interest. And under Rule 7.1, the SRA say it's your policy, but the policy needs to be fair. So back when the interest rate was like 0.1%, I mean, that was 2021 was 0.1%. It's now 5.25%. Back in 2021, fair was zero, to be fair, because we weren't really getting paid any interest, were we? And then now it's 5%. It's like, well, zero is still not fair, and the worry is, I think, that law firms could come under some scrutiny about this.
I think we, on our client account, we were getting 0.05%.
Yeah.
So it was below the sort of base rate. So it wasn't really something firms had to think about, because you'd have to hold, ridiculously large sums for a long time to even accrue sort of, £5 or whatever. And the old rule was always that anything over £20 you would pay. And the old accounts rules, wasn't it? And anything under you didn't need to. So it became something you didn't think about. But interest rates have soared. I wouldn't say the banks were that forthcoming in putting up interest rates they were paying on client account as quickly, and they're certainly not paying 5%.
Yeah.
But I think it's caught up now, and I think, if I remember correctly, it's about 1.5 or something recently. So there is interest being owed to clients, and my view on it is, if you're accruing that kind of interest, you've got to pay it to the client. So
Yeah.
people have got to switch that back on.
Yes. I think it's going to take a long time though, because the wheels in this sort of area, in my experience, tend to move fairly slowly. Policy changes fairly slowly. A lot of firms sort of, we'll wait until the year end or things like that before we change anything. My concern is that, you know, what we're in now, we're in October. The interest rates started going up in sort of August time. Most firms, sort of end of March is your year end. You could have a fairly, you know, almost half a year, I suppose, of having a fairly decent interest rate without changing your interest policy and accounting to your client for a fair, which is a fair and reasonable sum, is what the SRA say. And my concern would be that firms aren't going to pick it up quickly enough, and could come under scrutiny then.
What does that mean, a fair and reasonable sum?
Well,
I mean,
Well, that's the new SRA accounts rules for you, though, isn't it? Because it's very much a case. Well, you make up your own policy, and I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but to be fair, you know, if you do end up earning sort of 4% interest on your client monies for a firm that holds client money in their general client account for a significant amount of time, I don't really think it's fair to pay your clients nothing.
Of course, no. I mean, I think. As with a lot of the solicitors' accounts rules, you make an interpretation and you put that in your policy. So my interpretation, frankly, is you just pay the interest rate that you're receiving. So if your bank is giving you, you know, on your client account, if they're paying 1.5% interest, you calculate 1.5% on the money that you've held for them. So you're passing it on. Obviously, you know, the solicitor sort of does make that 1.5 on a much bigger amount. So, you know, but that's how I see it. Some people might say that's not fair and reasonable. Why am I just passing on the interest? I'm holding the money. But then I would say it also says in the solicitor's accounts you shouldn't act as a banking facility. I don't think solicitors should be expecting to make money on interest. I think it's just something that, you know, you could do. You know, let's not talk about it. As in, we make, you know, you shouldn't act as a bank. You shouldn't be saying, I've got this money, whoopie-doo, I'm going to make interest. But if that does happen, so be it, you know, but you need to, that's how I've interpreted it. Fair and reasonable is just to pass on the percentage you're receiving, but on their amount.
Yeah, I see your point. I mean, I don't know whether I pass on the whole amount. I think there's an aspect of you could what is fair. I mean, if you're receiving 4% and you're paying your client 3.5%, I think that's fair and reasonable, and you're pulling a little bit back for whatever But I think it's the extreme, isn't it? It's the if you're receiving 4% and you're paying your client nothing. I think I think those are the firms that are going to try and pick up here.
Yeah, I think when we get to a point when if it happens where client accounts are getting 4% interest on the money, then I think then you're talking about. I mean, we're nowhere near that. I can't see. Client accounts for solicitors, business client accounts. As far as I know, there's none out there which are giving that amount. And if there is, please tell me immediately.
I think it's going to change though. I think we are going to start seeing those kind of numbers. Yeah, and I don't think it's going to take long. It wouldn't surprise me if we're up there before the end of this calendar year.
Yeah, at which point I would probably agree with you that a fair and reasonable amount could be reassessed. I think that is, some people might be unhappy with solicitors' accounts rules being so grey in areas, but actually it does give a flexibility to interpret. And as long as you reflect that in your policy and I'm getting nerdy now, aren't I? But you agree, put that in your policy and give a real reason for it. I think that's fair, and the Solicitors Accounts Rules allows for that, doesn't it? It allows for you to make an interpretation based on your experience, knowledge, however you want to put it.
I think
as a firm.
Yeah, and I think this could also be a trigger, because I think it may be that in certain areas, certain policies that the firm holds, firms may become slightly complacent over their policies. And I know when the SRA accounts rules changed and they started saying, well, you need to have an interest policy and you need to abide by that interest policy, it was all very new to firms, but it was like the key, that was one of the key policies that they had to sort out. And I think this could be a bit of a reminder about those policies. And it's like, right, okay, it's time to stop being complacent about the policies you have, and you need to actually properly review them. Otherwise you could be in trouble here. I actually think that in a strange way, I think this is actually probably a good thing. Whether not necessarily the interest rates itself and all that kind of argument, but the actual pushing firms to really review the policies that they have, preferably before their year end, to make sure that, even if they were picked up earlier in the year, that their policies need review. At least they've now done it, and by the time that you get to March, they've done it and sorted it and go, look, we've already done this. We've had a look at the policy, we've reviewed it, we've altered a few things, and this is what our policy is for 23-24. And then you don't get that sort of level of scrutiny, that kind of scrutiny and that worry.
And then document it, put it in the office manual, make sure the policy is there, not just start doing it, because that's the way. I mean, regular review of policies is very important. Very important. It's got to be done. And like we said, solicitors and counsel rules allow for interpretation, and the landscape is changing constantly in terms of the outside world and the economy and the interest rates. So you've got to be flexible to that.
Absolutely. Great. Well, talking about flexibility and things changing in the outside world, this sort of brings me on nicely to my next sort of news topic. It's actually a news topic that cropped up. It cropped up in June, but things are moving on it. And that was the Law Society got the go ahead to take the government to court over legal aid rates for criminal work. And this all happened sort of the middle of June, that they got given this, but the court dates are set for December. So I don't believe there's been any movement on the court date. So as far as I understand, there's going to be a lot of talk about this in the next couple of months, and about how that court case is going in this judicial review over the criminal legal aid funding. And we all know that sort of last year, I think it was last year or earlier this year, where we had the barristers striking and certain criminal legal aid solicitors striking over pay. I think this is a really interesting turning point, to actually, for an organisation such as Law Factory, to take the government to court and have this judicial review. Because you and I both know that legal aid, not just criminal legal aid, but legal aid as a whole, has been massively underfunded for years. It's quite close to my heart, this subject.
Working with the Law Factory from way back in sort of 98 is when I started, actually. So a different millennia, is that right? I don't know. It wasn't 1,000 years ago. It feels like yesterday. But when I sort of cut my teeth and sort of learned everything, with you guys, there was a lot of legal aid firms we worked for. And actually, where I've ended up now, where I'm working, is we do a lot of areas, but legal aid's one of the big areas. We're more civil, but as you say, crime is normally the first, and you hope things follow. But legal aid is a crisis point in terms of funding, and it's not something that tends to sort of be at the top of the news cycle. And I sort of feel for a lot of these areas, nurses, doctors, all of these kind of things, but it's difficult to get a sort of public consensus to feel sorry for solicitors. It really is.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And I'm not saying feel sorry for them, but what I am saying is that the underfunding in legal aid is, I speak specifically about civil, but the rates that are paid on civil cases, in one of the areas we do, for instance, mental health, the rates have not gone up for 15 years. And sorry, I'm just thinking in my head, have I got that right? So whatever I say may not be specific to the month or year, but it's a long period. I believe it is around that long. And in fact, they've gone down. They were cut by 10% And I believe that was in 2012. I probably should have written these down on a sheet.
Yeah,
So
it would have
it's
been
come
around that
down.
time. Yeah, it would have been around
It
that
was,
time.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was LASPO as well, where they took a lot of areas out of being funded by legal aid. So we're talking about running a firm or running a practice where you're being paid rates that are, let's say, over a decade old, in a sort of climate where inflation and everyone's pay goes up because inflation, and that's right and that's good. But in terms of running a firm, you're looking at the same money, if not less. But everything else goes up. So I believe it's crisis point. I believe legal aid firms will struggle to really provide legal aid, to provide legal advice to some of the most vulnerable in society, and the rates have to go up. And frankly, they don't have to go up a huge. I mean, I'd love it if they went up a huge amount, but they don't have to go up a huge amount to make a big difference, because legal aid firms have basically learned to work, with on these margins. So you give a small increase, just give us the 10% back, 10% back. It's mad to think, isn't it? You get 10% back from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That in itself would help, but
yes, it would.
we'd like more, please.
Yeah. The other thing as well that concerns me is that, I mean, I love legal aid practice. I mean, my favourite work as a cashier is working on legal aid practice because it's so interesting. And I've such a good time doing it, and the staff that you meet are there. It's almost not a job. It is a vocation, and people say that about, like, you hear that about sort of teachers and nurses and doctors and whatever. But if you're a legal aid solicitor, it is a vocation. You're there because you want to help people. Certainly, if you're dealing with the likes of like you say, like mental health, like what GN Law does and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. And my concern is that we're going to see we are seeing, but I think we're going to see more, unless this is dealt with, more and more people just either quit the profession or do something else, or have legal aid firms that close. But the problem is that the general population is still increasing. So there's more vulnerable people, and especially when you're in a cost of living crisis as well. If you look at housing, for example, we've got more and more people on our streets and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to get political here. This is just me just chucking out facts. You've got more people on the streets, and more people can't afford it. But then you have a situation where you've got more people, less firms, less money going to those firms, so less firms open, which means you end up with more of a backlog, and more vulnerable people not getting what they need.
Housing's a brilliant example, because I believe in the borough of Barnet, I believe there's only one or two providers. It's a large borough. It's actually, I can say it because officially we don't do housing anymore. We had a housing contract which we've given back, and that was to do with funding. Basically, it's not a sustainable. What's the word? It's not sustainable rates that they pay, and so on. So we are we obviously still have clients we deal with, but we can't take any new work, so we have to turn that away and we pass it on. But that's really vulnerable people who are sometimes they're homeless, they're on the street. It's sad, and I think you are correct as well, going back to what you said about it being a vocation. I think to be a solicitor and to practice in legal aid, you have to really care, about what you do, because you're probably not going to get paid what you could get paid doing law elsewhere. And so you're making that choice. Like a nurse, for instance, working for the NHS, could probably go to a private nursing or whatever and earn more, but maybe they believe in what they do. This is the reality, so we do get a lot of people who train through legal aid, that they qualify and then they move on. So we see a lot of people who get that grounding, they learn everything, and it's not to say they don't care about their clients, they clearly do, but there's a cost of living. Some people need to earn more, and it's very difficult with legal aid to do that. And not forgetting, of course, we're a firm in North London, so cost of living, if you go, if someone lives in further into London, it's crazy, so it is a vocation, it is a passion. you do have to sacrifice potentially, some earning potential. Not that you can't earn well, but certainly there is a slight sacrifice there. And it's sad, really. I mean, it really needs to be looked at. If you look in the news, like you said, people are, that's something that, how as a sort of civil legal aid practice do you strike? How do you strike?
Exactly, yeah.
You can't really. I mean, you could say all of the civil legal aid practices, when they give you new contracts, let's just not sign them.
Yeah,
very difficult.
yeah,
very difficult.
it's very difficult to coordinate. Very
Yeah.
difficult, and the problem is, your cases are sort of spread over. It's not like you just drop your pens and walk out.
Yeah.
And I just worry. I think I worry that firms are just gonna say, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a real wrench. And I think it's going to, like you said, I think it's going to be more disappointment than anger. I think they're just going to be really sad that they look at this and go, I just can't make this work.
Yeah.
And I really hope this judicial review, first of all, I hope the Law Society wins, because we need an increase for criminal, for all legal aid, but for crime. And I hope that this goes on, and we have a situation where it then trickles down to housing, to immigration, to all the other mental health, and they do a similar thing, because we're all, in a weird way, criminal lawyers are all in the same boat. And it's so important that it's looked at. And when you look at if you take a barrister, I mean, certainly a junior barrister, I'm sort of focusing on crime a bit because of the judicial review, but if you look at a junior barrister, the amount of time that they have to put in, with and where they have to be, and all the traveling and the waiting that they have to do, and the being in court and all the preparation and then coming back, and you actually break it down as to what they're being paid, and you look at, okay, well, what's your hourly rate then, really, that you're taking home? And it's frighteningly low. I mean, it really is frighteningly low. And you've got these quite a lot of sort of like university graduates that say, I want to be a criminal barrister, whatever, and they go into this with this charge and this belief that it's going to be great and whatever. And within a few years, we see a lot of junior barristers looking at it and going, I've tried really hard. I've done all of my exams. I've done all my qualifications, and I've got to this point where it should be good. And I'm looking at it, and I can't make it work. I can't live off this. And it's a major, major problem.
Yeah, let's get into coding and selling IT software or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Make a lot more money.
Yeah.
But it's sad. Yeah, I mean, it just has, it has to be. I will be watching with, anticipating what happens with this JR, and I hope it gets proper news coverage, not just a couple of people like us talking about it. I hope it gets to the news and they actually discuss it and so on and so forth.
I hope it's painted in a good light as well, because I can't stand the stigma around solicitors and stuff. And I'm speaking with regard to general public. Like, you and I work in the field, we both know, we see hourly rates and bills every single day, but a lot of general public look at solicitors and they all think that they earn megabucks because they're solicitors, and it's just not true. It's just not true. So, as you said, the sympathy for them isn't there, and I think a lot of that is down to media representation, certain outlets, and how they represent solicitors generally. What I'd really like to see is an unbiased look at it and go, right, this is how much they've taken, and this is the amount of work that they do, and this is how long they've been struggling for, and paint it in a light so that it's kind of a bit of a wake-up call perhaps for the general public, where they look at it and kind of go, oh yeah, oh my god, that's terrible. And they always say, you never want a solicitor, do you need one, or something, that you don't have any for a solicitor until you need
until
one.
You need them.
And then you think, but just think, if you needed one tomorrow, if you got in trouble or whatever, and you needed a criminal lawyer to help you for whatever it was, whether it was your fault or not, like, if you need one, you need one, and if they're not there for you, then you're gonna struggle.
It's unfortunate, but what you're more likely to see in the news is is a story about a sort of lefty lawyer who's basically had £1 million bill for some sort of case to do with immigration or something, and then people feel, oh, it's just, they're rinsing the government for money. And it's like, well, there are big cases where people make money, but there's also thousands of little tiny cases where someone is on the street and you're getting a fixed fee of £156, to basically determine whether someone sleeps on the street that night and fight for them to have somewhere to sleep, or get rid of the black mold infesting their bedroom. And one of the main areas we do actually is mental health, where we represent people who are detained under the Mental Health Act to go and visit them in hospital. And the Mental Health Act, once again, I'm not a lawyer, but this is my understanding, but the Mental Health Act is basically a sort of, what if you are sectioned under the Mental Health Act, you have lost all your human rights. You can be kept in a hospital and given medicines you don't want, and so if you were in the unfortunate situation of being sectioned, you need a lawyer, like for you to basically regain your human rights and regain your liberty, so to speak. So that's about as important as it gets. And this is a very sort of low paid area of law where it's legal help rates, they call it, or legal help, some of the lowest rates. And that person coming to see you in hospital has the keys to your liberty, to whether you can be free in society or detained in hospital. So, really important sort of job someone's doing for you. And it's just underfunded, really. It's not given any.
Yeah, it's frightening, really. I mean, because
like you said before, when you need them, then so you get to that point, you need someone. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
But, I was just going to say, you talk about. I mean, I see the fixed fee at 156, 157 plus VAT, and you sit there and go, is that the value you're placing on this person's well-being? 157 quid. That's the value that the government is placing on this one person's well-being. I don't want to get too political, but that just from a purely cost basis, shocking, isn't it, really?
We'll steer away from politics, obviously, but we'll see what, when governments change, does the policy change? So what we're saying is, it's been many years, so we won't go into politics. We'll probably see a new government, and then we'll see what happens. But fingers crossed. I mean, I do think that there was talk at both conferences that there isn't going to be an increase in rates. So roll on the JR, and let's hope that the Law Society can get something done there, and that can kick on from crime to civil.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I'd like to see, definitely. Yeah, I'm going to be watching this. When it starts, I'm going to be all over it, because as you said at the start, it's also an area close to my heart. I mean, you and I both went trekking around London and the southeast to all these little legal aid firms.
Good old days, yeah, the
good old days, yeah. But Law Factory works for legal aid practices. We got all different types of legal aid firm that we work for. So we kind of see this day in, day out. So we really want to see a bit of an uplift. So I'm going to be very much watching it.
Like you say, I remember trekking all over London, spent a lot of time on the tubes, going to really small legal aid practices, sole practitioners, sometimes a husband and wife, sometimes just one solicitor or two people in tiny places. And I've not been around for a while with the Law Factory, and obviously you're not going to answer this, but I think some of them must have struggled to survive, and some of them must have had to have closed. So it's very sad, that I would say today, running your own practice, just you and a few people, with all of the hoops, because that's the other thing with legal aid. Not only do you get paid low rates, but you have to basically do the most amount of go through the most amount of red tape, fill out the huge numbers of forms. You're audited, and I think the legal aid agency push a lot of that onto solicitors firms. So
I mean, just doing
easy.
I mean, you do for example, I mean, we might as well continue into life in a legal aid practice now, which is our main topic.
We've moved there.
It's fine. it was all part of my cunning plan. But yeah, when you're talking about in a life and law firm, and as cashiers, we sort of come in almost at the end, unless you're doing POAs and stuff like that. Generally, when it's your final bill, cashiers there at the end, and we look at first of all, you're doing your legal help. When you fill out a legal help for one case, bearing in mind this one case you're only getting paid 157 quid for, you have to fill out 25 boxes. If your software doesn't do it, automatically, you would have to do 25 boxes of codes and information and dates and all this kind of stuff in order to get paid that 157 quid. That's after the solicitor's done the work. And then if you're lucky enough to go 3 times, so if your time recording is twice the fixed fee, you don't get paid an escape fee. It has to be 3 times, correct. 3 times your fixed fee. So once you've done 3 times your fixed fee,
and there are tons of fixed fees as well.
Tons of fixed fees, which you've got to trawl through, and then you can apply, and it's not even a guarantee. You can apply for an escape fee, which is where an escape fee, for those that don't know, is where you escape the fixed fee. So the fixed fee is 157. You go 3 times over that in time recording, you escape that fixed fee, and then you can apply to get paid on an hourly rate at legal aid rates for your extra work. But the thing is, you have to do all of that work first. Almost as a gamble, because you're not 100% sure you're going to get paid it. So you do all of that work first, and then you have to compile a big old bundle of stuff, fill out a massive EC1 claim form, and then send it off to the LEA to get assessed, at which point they could say, no, I'm not paying you. And then you've basically done that entire case for free. They'll have reasons why they wouldn't pay it to you, and you can appeal, granted. However, it's a lot of work, isn't it? Just generally, just trying to get paid, let alone doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of triggering a bit of PTSD in me while you say this. This is our life, But yeah, absolutely, the amount of work. I mean, where we are, I don't know what other practices do, but I would imagine sort of medium to larger legal aid practices is that's all done by accounts. Mm-hmm. So we try and basically do as much non-chargeable work as possible. We even have administrators within teams who do admin work, because there's so much admin work. So actually, what's happened is we have larger accounts teams than as essentially legal aid change something and say, oh, now we want you to do this as well. Well, you might look at it and go, well, I need to employ someone to do that. So in our firm, we have a lot of escape cases or exceptional claims, as you say. So we have someone who just deals with that exclusively. In fact, a few of us. That's a huge part of the job. So you end up needing a larger accounts team, which is going to cost money. So it's a totally different kettle of fish. And we've had people who cashiers who've never done legal aid, but are really, they know everything about being a legal cashier. And then you sort of bring them in and say, this is what you need to do for the legal aid stuff. And they're like, what's this? Because it's its own whole process. Mm-hmm. Very time consuming. You have to be, have 100% accuracy. So when you were saying about an exceptional claim or an escape case, when it's assessed by the legal aid agency, they will, if you're out by 1 or 2p, that's a sort of reject. Come back, sort it out. So you have to be 100% accurate. I totally understand, by the way, why legal aid agency assess these cases, and they're making sure that the public fund or the money that they've got is spent correctly, and that's absolutely right. But then it's that on the onus of the firm or our team to basically be 100% accurate, have evidence for everything you do, and that's the job. That's the job in a legal aid firm. Is a lot of it is sort of cashier. Not strictly the cashier sense of when you basically put in your inputs and outputs and all of that. It's actually preparing stuff in legal aid, certainly, to be sent to the legal aid agency. I'm okay now. I've recovered from my sort of brief PTSD and realised that I do this every day, so I should probably get over it. But
that's the thing. There is a lot of responsibility in it, as we said before. It all comes at a cost. If you've got to employ more admin staff, it's going to eat away at it. And especially when we're in a situation where we have this cost of living thing, and those admin staff are in the same boat as the solicitors. That a loaf of bread costs the same to one as it does the other. So when they're going to need pay rises and stuff. So once again, like, the firm is then still pulling in the same amount as it was 10 years ago, but we're going to have to we're going to take another hit because we've got to pay this person a bit more money, and it becomes really difficult, becomes really hard.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the point you're making about the sort of the life of a legal aid cashier, and how different it is from sort of private work.
Yes.
Because
we know we used to do both, didn't we?
Yeah.
Obviously, sorry, you still do, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're at the Law Factory with sort of a large number of different clients, you can hop from one to the other, and you can see the difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
You see it every day.
I wouldn't say easier isn't the right word, because having private only comes with its own challenges of I'll give you an example actually of when being a legal aid firm actually sort of turned out all right. Was during the dreaded lockdowns and COVID and all of this, is that actually as a legal aid firm we were still being paid on a monthly basis for our sort of standard monthly payments and so on. But I could imagine a lot of private firms, when you're relying on sort of the everyday normal person who might be furloughed or might not have any money, we just weren't getting paid. So in a weird way, we kind of, as with every firm, we were sort of petrified of what was going to happen, but we realized that we just kept working and we had that regular. So one of the sort of I wouldn't say only, but one of the nice things was that, whereas the difference with private only firms is there's a constant, battle to get money in.
Yeah.
We
found there were certain firms which did all right. And certain firms which I mean, I'd say everybody struggled in one way or another during that period. I think the ones that the financial ones that struggled was sort of like private litigation, stuff like that. They struggled a little bit because you weren't allowed to see anybody, going to court, that didn't happen. So struggled a bit there. But what the firms that did a lot of work during that period were actually the conveyancers, because come what may, there was no way that during that period they were going to stop people buying and selling houses, because the country had to have that economy going. And that's why you ended up with the Rishi Sunak cuts in stamp duty or stamp duty holidays and all this kind of thing, trying to encourage people. And we went through 2020 2021 really, it was I've never seen anything like it for conveyancing.
Well, they say there was a boom in people selling their house and moving because they were locked down in their house, and suddenly they looked around them and they started seeing the imperfections or the things that they prefer to have, and thought, oh, I don't really like this front room. I've spent 3 months in it. I want a bigger one. So a lot of people actually in that period started thinking about moving because they were stuck in the same place, and where they'd normally be at work all day and just sort of get, the hustle and bustle of life. So I imagine there was a bit of I know as you're saying, there was a boom in conveyancing. But the opposite.
And that's that from a cashier's perspective, that's what I've seen, the difference between like a legal aid practice and a private practice is where you have, granted there are certain deadlines with legal aid work, but generally, you know what date you've got to get your submission out by. So, you got the first nearly 3 weeks, haven't you, of a month to get your submission done, the following month. And stuff like that. So, you can kind of plan your day a little bit or plan your week a little bit around it and make it work. As a cashiering team, you can kind of make it work for you to a degree. But when it comes to things like conveyancing, for example, all bets are off then, especially in 2021, like Law Factory, we're sitting there and we've had a lot of conveyances and it's like, right, we've got a completion today. And it's like bang, bang, bang. And, we have days where, one client's got like 10 completions on or something. The thing is every one of those individuals who are using that law firm for their house want to be first in the queue. And so our guys at Law Factory are rummaging around and they're working really, really fast and they're checking the bank for the funds received and they're constantly on the phone to solicitors and admin staff trying to tell them. So it's sort of like different pressure.
It's the old adage that a law firm has hundreds or thousands of clients, but the client only has one lawyer.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're not going to, you're my only lawyer, and you're like, oh, I've got 1,000 clients. It's not going to work. You got to make them number one. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that sort of highlights something that I've said to many firms, because I deal with Law Factory. I deal with all new practices coming in, and it's very much a case of, look, you need to invest in your cashiering department, even if you don't even if you didn't use the Law Factory, and you're looking for someone in house, like, invest in them. If you need, if you're looking at it, and let's say you've got a cashier that's, say, massively overwhelmed, or is struggling, or is leaving, or maybe you've been through like 2 or 3 cashiers, those are clear signs that you're a very, very busy firm, and one cashier isn't enough. You need like 2, or a little team. Even if you've got to get a part-timer in, invest in your cashiers, because they're the ones right at the end. They deal with all your money. They pay all your bills. They sort out all of your client stuff. They pay your staff. They pay you. They do absolutely all of that stuff. All the work that you guys have done, all your hourly rates comes through the cashier in pounds, shillings, and pence. So you've got to invest in them, and they've got to keep you compliant.
Very important. Yeah. And I think, if you use cashiers properly, they will increase the efficiency of your systems and how you work, and you'll be able to make more money.
Yeah.
So it's, as you said, it's an investment. Invest in a cashier. It's not throwing money away at an extra person. It's investing in a cashier so that your firm can be more efficient and make more money.
Yeah.
So totally the right way to look at it is as an investment. That's exactly correct.
We went to a firm once. Jeremy, who's the senior partner of Law Factory, went to a firm once. And,
big up JD.
Big up JD. He'll be watching. He went to a law firm once that we got called into, who was struggling with their accounts, and they had an SRA accounts rules audit. They had an inspection. SRA inspector was there. We got called in because they were in a mess, so we had a look at it and tried to help get them through the audit. And senior partner, the SRA inspector, right, where's your cashier? Senior partner said, I can't afford a cashier. And like quick as a flash, the SRA guy said, you can't afford not to have one. And that's kind of stuck with us generally since then. And that happened in like 2005, I want to say.
Yeah, I like it.
But it's so true,
isn't it? It makes sense.
Can't afford not to have a cashier. And because you just end up in trouble. And efficiency is a massive thing, and especially if we're talking legal aid firms as well. I mean, you guys know, right, how much this case is. You've got to make everything fit into that 157, including some kind of profit, right, for that fixed fee. So efficiency is right at
157, 253, 450, 744. Don't get me started. There's so many, but we've got to fit everything into that. And like you said, if you don't escape, then you're going to lose. It's difficult. Yeah, but I should say, actually, we're not just legal aid. Just so I don't pigeonhole us. For anyone watching, no, that's fine. No, because that was our main sort of expertise, what we've always done. But and I think this is relevant as well, is that we do private law as well, and a legal aid firm has to provide that in order to survive. If you were just legal aid 100%, I really struggle to see how a firm could survive. I'm sure they're out there, and all power to them, and that's great, but that's going to be difficult. So you lots of areas: family, wills, trust and probate, etc. These are like our main private areas, but you need those in order to survive. So that's what they need to realize, is when you get these legal aid practices getting these such low rates, is you open up to private areas as well, and really that's offsetting where you could potentially be making a loss. So we have to analyze very carefully what all the areas of law we're doing and how profitable they are. Going into sort of cashier-y, sort of nerdy stuff, not necessarily nerdy, but one of the interesting things, and you'll know what I'm talking about, is assessing the difference between profitability and cash flow. So basically, you could be a profitable firm with no money. completely broke, and that's because cash flow, is where it's at. You could make a great profit, but if that turnover, all that profit that you've made is bills that haven't been paid yet, in the private area, then you could be overdrawn. Your
Yes.
cash flow. So that was an interesting one. We've really focused on that. Is looking at profitability, income, expenditure, but actually we focus really heavily on cash flow. They feed into each other, but part of that profit could be unpaid bills. So that is one of the big things where if you're not looking at your cash flow, where that profit is, where that money is, when it's coming in, looking at it in detail, you find yourself in trouble. And people say, well, I don't understand. We're making 10%, 20%, 30% profit, but we're overdrawn. And that's because you're not focusing on cash flow and getting money in and so on.
I see that a lot. A lot. Yeah. You sit there and you have lawyers that are billing, and they're doing loads and loads of work, and they're billing and billing and billing. It's great. Oh, brilliant, great billing. Okay, what's your credit control policy?
Yeah.
Like what do you do? It's all well and good billing and getting this profit, right? But until that money comes through the door, right? It's effectively meaningless. In fact, it's worse than meaningless. Because if you're on bills delivered, we've still got to pay the VAT out of our bank account, and we've still got to pay the tax on this, and we've still got to pay you, and we've still got to pay all of our overheads in order for you to do the work to generate that bill in the first place. We have to get the money coming through the door. What are we doing about that? And there's a lot of firms I find that they get lost in the billing over actually the recovery. And I spoke about this in episode 3 with Karen Edwards from the ILFM. We were talking about budgets and cash flow and lockup.
I watched that. I saw it talking about lockup, which is the phrase.
And it's so important to get that money through the door. But the thing is, there's an educational aspect about this as well. At the end of the day, if you've employed a lawyer to come in and work for you to do a certain area of law, great. But there needs to be an education of, right, okay, great, do the work, do the billing, but this is what we expect for recovering those costs, and recovering those invoices and stuff, and it needs to then be part of the fabric of the firm, and everybody knows what the policy is, and everybody knows what to expect, but also the client knows what to expect, and then make it easy for the client to pay you. Please make it easy, because if you've got a situation where you say, like an old school firm, we only accept checks, or we only accept transfers by bank account, you're sitting there kind of going, well, you've got debit card facilities, you've got online facilities, we've got you could put links at the bottom of your bills, you could use your website. There's so many ways that you can make it easier for a client to pay you. Don't give them an excuse.
I agree. We can do plugs here, can't we? Doesn't matter. Yeah, of course. We use a system called Legal, Legl. That's right, Legal. It's brilliant. And basically we have a portal on our website where we can also send links. We can send links via our case management system, Quill, which another little plug. I won't sort of go on about that, but that's all linked together. But Legal, we send a link, and I've realized there was a stats area where you can go in and see the stats. That was really interesting. What I realized was that most of our clients were receiving a link. They could get that on their mobile phone, whatever, and they were normally paying us at lunch or after work. And we were sending links at certain times, and we were getting a response time. So in other words, from when we sent the link to when they paid, and it was less than 2 hours.
Wow.
And that was brilliant. I was like, I was really chuffed to see that. And I think that's a combination of giving them the ability to pay quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Sending them an email so they can just go on their mobile phone and do it, and getting that email timed correctly. So I think it's using your brain, so to speak. So if someone who's not got lots of money, but they're on a salary, like ask for money on account on the first day of the month, they've just been paid, send them a link, just then, things like that. And also, just things like that, really. Just think about it. But that's brilliant. That legal system has worked for us. I'm sure there's plenty of others, but
That
that's
sounds
the one
good.
we
So that's
use.
legal. So that's LEGL for those listeners and those watching.
Yeah,
LEGL. Have a look at that.
yeah, they're great. Yeah, and you get, yeah, you can put the link in an email. You can. It's very flexible. It's got your own firm sort of
Like a
what's the
logo.
word?
Logo.
Logo, banner. Yeah, so it
Yeah.
all looks very professional.
So
And
it looks
clients
like
are
it
happy with
looks
that.
like it's coming. It actually feels like it's coming from you, and that it's your
Yeah,
service that you're providing, rather than oh, this is the
yeah.
system that I use to get you to pay me, kind of thing.
And I think people, we got to give people credit for the fact that everyone's sort of modernizing and are happy to just pay something on their mobile phone. Some clients won't be, but before we would have someone ring up the office and pay by credit card over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, when someone clicks the link, they're not ringing the office, so that's one less phone call to take,
Yep.
which means people have more time to do work.
Yeah.
So it's
Definitely
all
more
these little
efficient.
things.
But also, we're in a time when people don't. It's ironic actually.
Yeah.
People are glued to their phones, but they don't like phoning people. It's
Interesting.
They might as well not be called phones these days, like, because
Yeah.
people don't like picking up the phone. If I could, I don't mind it. I've always been a bit of a phone head, but if someone's going to send me a link that says, right, here you go, I'll pay this. Oh, okay, click pay. Why would I phone? Why would I pick up the phone? So, and it's also taking time out of their day to pick up the phone, hoping that they're going to get through to the right person to then, but also people, like, I'm never 100% comfortable giving my debit card details out over the phone. I've never met the person. I know they've done some work for me and they've done a good job or whatever, but I don't know anything about the person that's taking that payment, and I'm giving them all my debit card details. I'd rather do it in a secure way. So make it easier for people. Use something like legal. Use something like that to make it easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, reading your card details over the phone is probably a no-no, really. I mean, sometimes when you speak to a company, they say, "Are you in a private? You're on your own. You're not in a public place." If you're on the bus, like, reading out your card details, probably not going to work, is it?
No, exactly.
It's about convenience. Everything is in the modern era, but we can do that for our clients as well. We'll make it convenient and easy for you to pay us. You pay us, everyone wins. We've got money on account,
Absolutely, definitely an easy win there. Definitely an easy win for any firm. It's good. Well, look, Dave, I think we're sort of approaching the end of our little chat here. It's flown by, isn't it?
It's flown by.
But it's been really nice having you on and having a bit of an insight into legal aid practice. I've really enjoyed that. And it's always nice having a natter with you, mate, and catching up.
Absolutely, yeah. So, they're not normally recorded, our conversations.
That's true.
But I think we've done all right, No obscenities. We've kept it legal.
Absolutely, kept it right. So no, I'm grateful to you coming on, and I just thought I'd give you an opportunity now just to sort of give our viewers and listeners any more details you want about GN Law. If you want to, Dave, you can do that.
Yeah, GN Law, Garl Nicholas. We're in North Finchley. Find us on the web. It's www.gnlaw.co.uk. And we offer lots of different areas of law, family, wills, trust and probate, mental health. Court of Protection is one of our big departments now. Actions versus police, or claims against public authorities, is another one. I'm racking my brain to think if I've forgotten any department, because I'll get in trouble. But I think that's it. Yeah.
But all your services are on the website anyway, are they?
Yeah, they're all on the website. Yeah, good save for me there. But yeah, it's it's a thriving sort of place, and love working there. Obviously, I miss the Law Factory, working with Jeremy and Alex and all these guys, and wish them well. And thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And next time we'll do this over a beer without a microphone.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks, Dave. And as always, I'm Alex Simons from the Law Factory. You can find out more about the Law Factory at thelawfactory.net. Just head over there, and where we're your legal cashiers. And then you can come talk to me if you're interested in using us. So by all means, do that. And thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you for the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.